So first of all, fuck you, YouTube video capture. Repeatedly disconnecting on me for some reason. I've tried to make this video like 4 times now. It's really late at night. I guess it's morning now, and I'm an insomniac. But I was up late just thinking through something. And I'm trying to think through sort of what it means to be a YouTube atheist, I guess. If you can think back like 5 years ago to 2 years ago, right? Maybe even less. There were really 2 sides to the conversation, the quote unquote great debate, as Agent of Doubt likes to call it. There were really 2 sides of that conversation. On the one hand, you had people who were who had a particular interest in the hard sciences, right? People like Aaron Ra, Thunderfoot, Andromeda's Wake, right? Even Extant Dodo, right? And that was one side of the conversation who took as their main enemy people like Kent Hovind, right? They're very, very concerned, and rightly so, about creationism, right? On the other side, you had the more philosophical side of the YouTube community. People like Theoretical Bullshit and DOS American Atheist and people like this, more interested in the humanities, right? And their main enemy, I guess you could say, would be someone like William Lane Craig, right? So they had a lot of videos about the Kalam cosmological argument and the ontological argument and stuff like this, picking those apart in different ways. And all that stuff is really interesting. But we've seen most of those figures, right? Most of those sort of what I would roughly say the old guard of the YouTube atheist community. You've seen a lot of that abnegate, right? So Aaron Ra doesn't seem to really construct videos and post them anymore. These days his videos are, him arguing in a parking lot with someone. Thunderfoot still posts occasionally, but Andromeda's Wake hasn't posted anything in ages. I don't think Zomgots, it's Chris, has posted anything in ages either. I know that a lot of these people have moved on to bigger and better things, and you still see them associated with something like the Magic Sandwich Show, but their sort of presence on YouTube isn't the same as it was previously. On the other side, the people associated with Tuesday Afternoon, right, DOS American Atheist, Theoretical Bullshit, etc., they've also abnegated, right? They've also kind of pulled out of the conversation for different reasons. I mean, DOS American Atheist popped up like a few months ago and said, I'm going to start making videos again, and then never made another video. Theoretical Bullshit seems to be kind of haunting the YouTube atheist community. He seems to post comments here and there and stuff, but he doesn't really make videos anymore. He's a busy guy, right? All these people have, moved on with their lives and find less and less time to make YouTube videos. So where does that leave this state of the YouTube conversation, if you like? And I think that this is a really interesting question. First of all, I wanted to say that old conversation strikes me as being something that had a ticking clock counting down, right? And I can only say this retroactively. It certainly didn't feel that way at the time. But I think looking back on it, it's quite apparent that it could only go on for so long. The reason being, how many videos can you make debunking Kalam before you just get sick of it? How many people are going to watch a video of I'm going to make a video debunking Kalam? How many people are going to watch that, right? It just seems to me to be well-trodden ground, right? There seems to be nothing new in William Lane Craig and in Kent Hovind either. I mean, I think creationism, at least as far as YouTube goes, has been pretty thoroughly debunked. Now that being said, there is a gentleman who goes by the handle Cool Hard Logic, I think, who still does that kind of video, and he's really good at it, debunking things like homeopathy and geocentrism and stuff like that. Sorry, I'm getting off track. So that old conversation seemed to me to deplete itself in a certain way, which I guess is kind of sad, but kind of interesting, because now we find ourselves in a kind of post-apocalyptic situation, right? That's hyperbolic, right? But we find ourselves in a post-atheist situation in a certain way. Second wave new atheism, you could almost think of it as second wave YouTube atheism, which strikes me as being something that's just beginning to get going. And I had a conversation, or I was a part of a Google Hangout the other night on 13 Heathens channel, which was extremely interesting, right? We had a conversation that didn't feel like the old conversation, right? It felt like a new conversation. Furthermore, it felt like, in a certain way, even something that was critiquing the old conversation, right? We talked a bit about like Matt Dillahunty and how it felt like he was perhaps too dismissive of theists who could be allies in certain struggles, right? So there are theists in the world who can be allies in the struggle to keep creationism out of classrooms, right? You don't want to alienate those people. So it's a really interesting conversation. I'll put the link in the description to it. So I guess there's a question in there, right? Do you feel, my lovely audience, by the way, I've gotten a lot of new subscribers in the past month, so welcome, all you lovely people. Do you feel that there is a new conversation constituting itself in one way or another? It strikes me that this new atheism, right? Second wave atheism, post YouTube atheism, or something like that. It strikes me that this conversation is a bit more inclusive towards theists in a certain way, right? For me personally, a lot of the most interesting conversations I've had in the past year on YouTube have been with theists, right? Not against theists, right, but with theists. And that sentiment seems to be around, right? Now, of course, not everywhere, right? Of course, not all theists are interesting, right? But there seems to be something more. There seems to be a little bit more of an inclusiveness, right? About the overarching conversation about religion that is taking place, which I think is a good thing. It also strikes me as being the case that some of the people who would mention 13 Heathens, the Realistic Nihilist, etc., are perhaps a little bit more subtle in their own way. And perhaps a little bit less interested in having the same old discussion over and over again. I don't know. I don't really know where that goes. I don't know how. Someone's going like 100 miles an hour down a residential street out there. I don't know where that conversation goes. I don't know what that looks like, right? And I don't know what topics or what areas that goes into. It seems like there's a little bit more conversation about things like philosophy of mind, for instance, philosophy in general. Wittgensteinism is another really interesting channel, really interesting person who I spoke to a little bit in one hangout, and we've exchanged a couple comments before. But all these people seem to be of a slightly more inclusive, subtle, perhaps slightly more philosophical mind than what we've seen before. That doesn't mean that there's a critique, right? I don't mean that as a critique of the older people. Just that the content of the videos are more subtle, not that the individuals are more subtle necessarily. Right? So there's the question: do you feel that it's the case that we're seeing a new wave of atheist discourse on YouTube? I guess a second question would be, do you think that's a good thing? Or do you long for the old days? Right? Would you like to see all of us making videos about Kalam or something like that, or debunking creationism or something? And then on top of that, I guess, or coupled with that, is that if we are sort of constituting a new conversation on YouTube, what would you like to see that conversation be about? Right? And these are questions that I'm posing to people in the hopes that I'll get video responses in like the 2 days that video responses will still exist. Hoping that I'll get video responses to it, or comments or something like that. Also, don't worry, I will get back to criticizing Psy. I will get back to that video series to wrap it up. I have 1 or 2 more videos on my mind. I just had to take a break. Also, I'm going home to visit for like a week, so I probably won't be posting anything for the next week. Beyond comments, right? But let me know. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Right. Thank you. Have a good day.